On behalf of the entire Loretto family of care, please join in honoring our founders and visionaries. Loretto, rooted in faith and service. Nearly 90 years ago, the first diocesan home for the aged in North America was opened off Brighton Avenue in Syracuse. It was called Loretto Rest and was managed by Catholic Charities. 10 Sisters of St. Francis provided care for 110 Catholic residents who called Loretto Rest home. Today, the Loretto family of care consists of 21 programs and services that provide care for 7,000 people in Onondaga and Cayuga County. It began with a fundraising letter from Bishop Grimes, dated September 1st, 1915, claiming, "We have no place to house our aged. They find themselves now alone, without anyone to care for them in their old age." The fundraising effort was delayed when the U.S. entered World War I. Bishop Curley, Bishop Grimes' successor, saw elder care as a gaping hole in diocesan social services and later moved ahead with the project. Ground was broken in 1926, and Loretto Rest opened in 1927.
Syracuse was the first diocese to develop a home for the aged. So that was somewhat unique.
We've been involved since 1927, first as staff, paid staff from the diocese, that the diocese gave the sisters a stipend every year to be staff, to care for the elderly, to do whatever is necessary to make their lives pleasant while they were living here at Loretto.
The stipend Sister Helen referenced was $200 a year per sister, $4 a week. Monsignor Davern recalls visiting Loretto Rest every week in the 1930s.
I would come with my 2 aunts who lived downstairs. They would visit their sister at Loretto. I got to know a lot of the people, did little things for them. They'd give me little candies and things. As a kid, you remember the candies.
At the time, Loretto Rest didn't accept people who should be in a convalescent home. But according to this article, once Loretto Rest accepts a guest, they will be cared for life.
My mother, God rest my mom, was a resident of Loretto way back, and she died there. And the care that the nuns gave her at the time, remember the nuns started in 1927 or 28, and they've been there ever since.
They felt the love and compassion and genuine care that the sisters gave for them, because they could talk to the sisters, they prayed with the sisters. Some of them had meals with the sisters in the dining room, and it became family.
Members of the Loretto Guild were dedicated to enhancing the lives of the guests at Loretto Rest. The Guild was founded in 1946 by a group of civic-minded women and is still very active today.
I was ordained in 1954, and I was stationed on the south side of Syracuse at Our Lady of Lourdes. And Loretto was a lovely little nursing home up the street. It's become awesome since then.
The growth began in 1955. The diocese broke ground for a wing to Loretto Rest to be called Pius X.
Bishop Forey started it for retired priests. It was the first of its kind in the whole United States. I'm only the 3rd administrator in all these years. Sister Timothy was administrator for the priests for 40 years. It's a privilege to bring some joy into their life, some fun.
In 1961, a young priest by the name of Charles Fahey joined Catholic Charities.
When I first went into Catholic Charities in 1961, Monsignor Lawler, who was my boss, recognized that with the coming of Medicare, Medicaid, the original Loretto Rest wasn't going to pass muster. So that's when he said to me, go back to school, you're not very smart anyway, and see if you can, what you can learn about aging. So I was fortunate to be there before the passage of Medicare and Medicaid, but during all the processes leading up to it. So that's when things really got going. And we had a sense of the tidal wave that was coming at us, and that the needs of people would be very great.
Medicare and Medicaid really jump-started a lot of long-term care facilities because there was more attention being paid and financial assistance for older people. And Loretto took advantage of all the federal programs, state programs that we possibly could.
Monsignor Fahey has received many accolades for his role in Loretto's growth.
The idea behind the development of Loretto, whereby it became more a community organization and less a church organization, is his baby. He conceived of that model, and the result was that Loretto has expanded tremendously, but it's also become far more diverse than it was in 1926 and in 1954 as a nice little Catholic nursing home. Fahey is a genius.
On Bishop Costello, Monsignor Fahey said,
He was a key. I mean, what a guy. He's spectacular.
people like Bud Costello helped drive Loretto's growth.
We wandered up one day on East Brighton Avenue and went up before there was a Route 81 and wandered around the fields up there. We looked down at Loretto and we said to ourselves, if we do something here, we'll never do it anyplace else.
Bud Costello was the actual backbone for Loretto. Bud provided us with lots of techniques and ways in which we could fund the kind of programs we wanted to fund.
In 1968, Bishop Forey announced the largest building project in the history of the diocese, a $15 million housing program on the Loretto campus. The plan included the Bernadine Apartments, the Cunningham, and Fahey.
Marty Kendrick was on the board when I joined the board. He was one of the founders of what I call the new Loretto.
Marty Kendrick was the chair of the Loretto Rest Advisory Board. The statement he made in the paper closely mirrors Loretto's mission today. He said, "The heart of the program is the conviction that, again, persons are individuals deserving of a decent place to live in an environment that is conducive to their overall well-being, spiritual, emotional, and physical." Sister Alexia, longtime administrator at Loretto Rest, was also part of the team. The Bernadine Apartments, which opened in 1973, were initially opened for people 62 and over who were in reasonable health. Later, the Bernadine became the first enriched living apartments in central New York.
The key element in all this, to a large extent, was Route 81 coming down through it. So another key person in this was Bob McAuliffe of happy memory. He and his confreres at Smith-Sovic did the negotiation, so we got a big chunk of dough for the properties that were Loretto's at that time that provided the equity for the Cunningham building.
Bob gave of himself, and so did his wife Kathy from another perspective, to so many diocesan projects.
Dr. Catherine McAuliffe played a key role in the planning for the Cunningham. She passed away before the opening. The McAuliffe Health Center in the Cunningham was named in memory of Catherine. The Loretto Rest Geriatric Center, now known as the Cunningham, opened in 1975. Move-in day was met with much anticipation and excitement. The new building had 520 beds.
Dr. Bob Collins was the medical genius behind so many of our activities. Bob Collins was a brilliant physician and a gentleman, and so deeply involved in Loretto.
John Clancy, who also served on the advisory board, became the first chair of the board of the new not-for-profit Loretto Corporation.
He was very proud of the service that he provided to Loretto in helping to improve the life situations for the elderly in our community. I would have to say that that was probably his focus all his life.
He was very active for Loretto, a great spokesman for Loretto in the community during those years.
John Clancy preceded me as president of the board. He was a wonderful teacher and tutor.
Chuckie Holstein chaired the board for 8 years.
She's such a whirlwind. She offered extraordinary leadership.
Jim Entrone became Loretto's CEO during those years.
Jim knew the ins and outs of New York State Health Department and other state agencies that was just invaluable.
And Trode came in, he was young and energetic and knew the state's services. And he was the one that started to introduce new programs and saw the vision of a PACE, and all the things that we have was started with Jim and Trode.
I had a lot of respect for Jim in his vision. He was just so far ahead of everybody, I think, in how we would take care of the elderly in the future going forward and what was going to be needed, et cetera, et cetera. And Jim just did a great job here.
When we hired Jim and Trode, we just zinged right through and founded a bunch more long-term care programs and facilities, including the Nottingham.
The final building constructed on the main campus was the Fahey Residence, named for Monsignor Charles Fahey. The Fahey Residence opened in 1991 and later became Fahey Rehabilitation. The original Loretto Rest was transformed into the first residential living facility for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. And in 1997, Loretto introduced PACE CNY, a program of all-inclusive care for the elderly. Kathy Recido worked at Loretto at the time and was instrumental in bringing the program here. Now, Loretto works in cooperation with St. Joseph's Hospital for the PACE program.
The boomers who are retiring definitely want to age at home. And they're looking for all kinds of services that will be brought into their home.
PACE opened a large new center in East Syracuse and relocated the McAuliffe Health Center to the site this summer to be able to meet this growing need.
I think that's why the PACE program has been so successful, because people can stay in their homes, but at the same time they have a place to go where they're taking care of some of their health needs and their social needs, etc., during the daytime, but yet they're home in their own home, which most people, I think, as we get older, would like to do, you know.
And I did tell Penny when we first started, I want this service when I'm ready. And she said to me the other day when I saw, you'll never be ready.
Amelia is 98 years old.
Everybody's younger than I am.
We have only scratched the surface of the programs and services Loretto provides, but now you know who we have to thank for being where we are today. Here's what some of the people we spoke to have to say about today's Loretto.
I don't want to be immodest, but I think it's been a model of elder care as it has evolved and developed over the years.
I think I'm most proud of the fact that Loretto provides a continuum of service. In other words, you might be aging in place, but you might also find that at some point in time you need extra services, or you need the long-term care facility, or you need to move. Loretto provides that.
It's important to have a resource like Loretto for the church so that it can continue the mission of Jesus Christ. But it's important for the community because it's a wonderful facility in which men and women of every religious denomination and of no religious denomination at all are cared for under the auspices of Loretto.
I don't think people fully realize the breadth, depth, and extent. Literally thousands of people have been part of the Loretto story, either to be returned to their own home, or for it to be a home when they were frail, or to be their last home.
When I look at Loretto as compared to other elder care providers here in our area, the difference with Loretto is not only the breadth of services that are offered and the outstanding care that's provided, it's the rich heritage of faith that sets Loretto apart. Everyone who enters or is touched by Loretto, they are treated with dignity, compassion, and respect, and I think that's what sets Loretto apart.
We hope that makes our founders and visionaries proud.